Season 3, Episode 18, Anonymous Fish Hiders. Device. Three scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nasal, begin to show an interest in creationism. Their superiors, concerned, send them to a psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We're in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing an evaluation. Fagioli, so, Mr. Ravioli, we were talking about your, problematic eating habits. You were telling me about after school. Ravioli nodding. Yes, yet, well, when they served fish, I didn't want to eat it, but I knew that if I didn't, they'd punish me, so I hid it in my backpack. Fagioli, taking furious notes. Interesting. Classic evasive strategy of the cowardly patient. Please, go on. Ravioli, ignoring the remark. Over time, it became a habit, not just at school. One time, years later, at a work dinner, they served baked sea bream. Beautiful to look at, stinky to eat. Fagioli. Ah, sea bream, the betrayer fish of emotions. Ravioli, shrugging. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to make a bad impression, so I stuffed it in my lab coat. Whole. Fagioli, eyes wide. In your lab coat? Ravioli, looking at his hands as if reliving the scene. Yes, it was still warm. Broth was dripping into my pockets. I pretended nothing was wrong all evening. Fagioli, clenching his teeth, holding back a sadistic smile. A brilliant strategy of unconscious self-sabotage. Go on, please, go on. Ravioli, barely above a whisper. In the end, after years like that. One evening I looked at them, my colleagues, laughing, joking, passing around fish dishes. And me, I was just standing there, sweaty, with yet another mackerel hidden on me. And I felt alone. A pause. Fagioli leans forward, staring intensely. Fagioli. Very interesting. You've developed a mechanism of emotional isolation. I'd say a typical case of auto-officialation. He stops, realizes the slip, coughs awkwardly. Fagioli, correcting himself. I meant social self-isolation, of course. A completely irrelevant lexical slip, obviously. Details. Let's continue. Igor. Ravioli, same as always, fish in one pocket. And brain in the other. How funny. SaveBlog.com. Alone. And with a fish in his pocket. Ravioli is recounting the time he used to hide fish in his pocket during company dinners. Flashback exterior evening. Downtown is nearly deserted, storefronts are closed and the streetlights flicker. Ravioli exits a fancy restaurant. His lab coat is half unbuttoned. The pockets are bulging and slightly greasy. Pieces of fish are inside. Ravioli, thinking to himself, I have to tell them eventually. I just need the courage. No more fish in the pocket. He walks a few steps, clutching the coat awkwardly. Then a memory flares up in his mind. Flashback within the flashback. Interior home kitchen. A strict woman points her finger at him. Ravioli's mom, shouting. You're not leaving the table until you eat all the fish. No games, no friends. Another flash. Young Ravioli, sad, sitting at his school desk at sunset, staring at fish on a plate as punishment. Back to the present. Ravioli shakes his head, dejected. Ravioli thinking, lowering his gaze. No, I can't do it. As he walks close to the walls, a colorful flyer stuck to a cracked bulletin board catches his eye. He approaches, it's a crumpled flyer. Narrator, Ravioli's inner thoughts while reading. Tired of hiding fish in your clothes? Afraid to say you don't like fish? You're not alone. Join Anonymous Fish Hiders. First session free. We're here to hear your silent pain. Ravioli stands frozen, the wind rustling the edges of his lab coat. Ravioli whispering in disbelief. Not alone? He closes his eyes for a moment. His right pocket deflates as sardine drops to the pavement with a loud slap. Ravioli sighs. Cut, the flashback fades, and we return to the evaluation office. Fagioli is staring at him, wide-eyed. Igor later commented, a flyer about a group of fish hiders, huh? Well, it would have been useful to him. At the very least, if the group didn't help, he could have used it to wrap the fish. How funny. SaveBlog.com. A long journey. We're in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing an evaluation. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue their conversation about the book Banani found in his garage, which belonged to his grandfather, and discusses geological evidence for Noah's flood. Papaia. The Grand Canyon contains more layers with sand that must have come from very far away. Ravioli. Oh yeah? Which ones? Papaia. The sandstone beds within the formations of the Supai group, between the Hermit Formation and the Redwall Limestone. Ravioli. Do we have evidence of wave marks? Papaia. Yes, but in this case, the remnants of sand waves point southeast, meaning the sand grains must have been deposited by water coming from the north and west. Ravioli. Let me guess, and up north and west, there's no nearby source. Papaia. Exactly, we find only the Redwall Limestone beneath the Supai group, so there's no nearby source of quartz sand for those sandstone beds. Ravioli. So the quartz came from really far away? Papaia. From an incredibly long distance. Igor. Just like the sand in the flood, we too got carried far away by Papaia. I just hope our names don't get deposited in the terminated files section of HR. How funny. SavedBlog.com. The meeting with the hiders. We're in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing an evaluation. Ravioli recounts the times he used to hide fish in his pockets during corporate dinners, and that one time he discovered a support group called Anonymous Fish Hiders. Flashback interior. A sad room with plastic chairs arranged in a circle. A rusty coffee pot on the table. A hand-drawn sign reads, "Welcome, Anonymous Fish Hiders." Ravioli sits down shyly. A few people are already there, smiling strangely. Moderator, a man with a mustache, wearing a jacket. "Welcome. We're all, former fish hiders here. You can just listen, or share if you want." Ravioli nods. The others begin to speak. Train station master. Hoarse voice. "I was a station master. Used to hide flounders under my uniform cap. Said the smell came from diesel. One time, during an inspection, a flounder slid down my face." Ravioli's eyes widen. Opera singer, still in costume, makeup smudged. "At La Scala premieres, they sometimes served fish. Once I hit a full-sized octopus down my neckline. I kept singing while trying to stop the tentacles from sliding down my dress." Ravioli covers his mouth to avoid laughing. Accountant looking solemn. "I know every tax loophole, even aquatic ones. My secretary sometimes brought me fish lunches, but I'd tuck sardines into client tax returns and mail them to the revenue agency. They never found out, I think." The others nod gravely. Another participant, a man with enormous feet, whispering, "I used to put anchovy pizzas in my boots. Whole ones. You see, my relatives thought I liked them, but He starts to cry softly. "I didn't have the courage to tell them I hated them." Wipes his tears with a used tissue. "But then again, you just had to walk slowly." A brief silence. Everyone looks around and nods in understanding. Ravioli suddenly feels relieved. He's not an alien anymore. He's not alone. He closes his eyes and takes a slow breath. Fade out into flashback back to Fagioli's office. Back in Professor Fagioli's office. Fagioli, pen frozen midair, puzzled. Interesting. Very interesting. A real psycho. Pistopathy of the group. He realizes the slip and coughs awkwardly. Fagioli, correcting himself. "I meant psychopathology, of course. Nothing to do with fish." Ravioli gives him a sidelong glance. Fagioli, trying to regain control. "So, tell me, Mr. Ravioli. After that meeting, do you still feel the need to hide fish?" Ravioli, thinking seriously for a moment. Yes, of course I do. But at least I wasn't alone anymore, and I'd learned new tricks for hiding fish." Fagioli, did she say a whole octopus down her neckline? Ravioli, yes. Fagioli, by any chance was it a polka dot dress? Ravioli. I wouldn't know. She didn't say. Fagioli. And a pizza in the shoes. Ravioli. Exactly. Fagioli. But was it wood-fired? Ravioli. I think so. Fagioli. Don't you get it, ravioli? Wood-fired or electric oven? Floral dress or polka-dotted? These are deep, crucial differences. Igor, mental institution or psychiatric hospital? No, Fagioli. There's not that big of a difference. But either way, it's important that you go there as a patient. How funny. SavedBlog.com. The end-of-year dinner. Ravioli is recounting when he started attending the anonymous fish hiders meetings. Interior nasal office. Ravioli is still seated in front of Fagioli. Ravioli with a faint smile. In the end, I started going to the group every week, and you know what? I felt good. Finally, understood. Fagioli nods mechanically, already ready to take notes. Flashback. Interior meeting room, final session of the year. Moderator, enthusiastically. Guys, to close out the year, let's have a dinner, an evening together. Opera singer, clapping hands. Yes, but no fish, please. Station master, chuckling. Agreed, a little trattoria. Fixed menu, good and cheap. I know the perfect place. Everyone applauds. Cut exterior evening. Flickering sign of a neighborhood trattoria. The group enters cheerfully. Interior trattoria, warm atmosphere, dim lighting. They sit at a long table laughing and chatting. A waiter arrives with a tray, placing it down with flair. Waiter, proudly. Welcome. House specialty, oven-baked fish with potatoes. A massive golden sea bass is laid on the table, surrounded by steaming potatoes. A frozen silence, wide eyes, half-open mouths. A fork clatters loudly. Cut exterior night. Outside the trattoria, the group exits laughing, waving goodbye to the staff. Station master, shaking the waiter's hand, is standing. Delicious, outstanding. Opera singer, bowing. Unforgettable. The staff goes back inside as the group walks toward the parking lot. Igor with a look of pure disdain. What a bitter surprise. A dinner for fish hiders, made of fish. More than bitter. It tasted like the sea. How funny. SaveBlog.com. Multiple layers. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue their conversation about the book Banani found in his garage, which belonged to his grandfather, and discusses geological evidence for Noah's flood. Papaia, look here, Ravioli. A third sandstone layer, located higher up in the sequence, gives us a clue. Ravioli, the Navajo sandstone, the one in southern Utah. Papaia, yes, and it's best seen in the spectacular mesas and cliffs in and around Zion National Park. Ravioli, where is it exactly? Papaia, it's well above the Kaibab limestone, which makes up the rim rock of the Grand Canyon. Ravioli, what's special about it? Papaia, like the sandstones in the Grand Canyon, this one is also made of very pure quartz sand, which gives it a distinctive bright white color, and it also contains remnants of sand waves. Igor, the world rewritten in quartz? Well, now it's our paycheck that's about to be rewritten with a big red stamp that says, terminated. How funny. SaveBlog.com, the fish that kept floating up. We're in Professor Fagioli's office where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli is telling the story of the year-end dinner with the anonymous fish hiders group, which unexpectedly turned out to be fish-based. The moderator eyes Giorgio, the station master. Moderator frowning. Giorgio, what's that oil dripping from your forehead? Giorgio slowly removes his cap. Underneath, stuck to his head, is a half-squashed piece of sea bass. Giorgio, smiling as if it's perfectly normal. Elevated storage. Rail strategy. The group bursts into laughter. They keep laughing. The moderator turns to the opera singer. Moderator, pointing to a strange bulge under her jacket. And you, Rosella, what have you got under there? Rosella, the opera singer, adjusts her dress proudly and pulls a baked sea bass fillet from under her jacket. Rosella, making a theatrical bow. Stage companion, got me through the hardest scenes. More laughter. The moderator turns to the accountant who's clutching his planner. Moderator, suspicious. And you, Dr. Cavallini? Nothing to declare? Cavallini opens the planner with a ceremonial gesture. A few chunks of sea bass fall out from between the pages. Cavallini, completely serious. Supplemental clauses, not subject to tax. Everyone laughs even harder. Then the moderator looks at the man with the boots, walking a bit oddly. Moderator smiling. Foot problems, Giacomo? Giacomo bends down, takes off a boot, and pulls out half a sea bass. Giacomo calmly. Double portion, maximum comfort. Finally, the moderator turns to Ravioli. Moderator, chuckling. And you, Ravioli? Where'd you hide yours? Ravioli smiles, opens his lab coat, and pulls a neatly packed piece of sea bass from the inside pocket sealed in a plastic bag. Ravioli, shrugging. Classic method, left pocket, leak-proof guaranteed. The whole group bursts out laughing again, clapping each other on the back, finally united in their strange, liberating brotherhood. The flashback fades, and we return to the office. Fagioli, glaring at him, very educational. So you believe, organized fish-related crime is a form of therapy. He notices the slip clears his throat. Fagioli quickly correcting himself. I meant therapeutic solidarity, of course. Ravioli, shrugging. Well, it works better than hiding sea bream in your trousers. Brief silence. Igor. Instead of a carefree dinner, the fish hiders found themselves facing their final exam. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Fagioli's Lemon. We're in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli was talking about a fish-based dinner. Back to the nasal office. Fagioli adjusts his glasses, staring sternly at Ravioli. Fagioli, scribbling nervously. Tell me, Mr. Ravioli, was there a lemon on the sea bass? Ravioli, thinking for a second. Actually, there were onions. Silence. The distant ticking of a clock. Fagioli's eyes widen. He knocks his pen off the table, then jumps to his feet. Fagioli bursting into a theatrical monologue. Onions? Onions? On sea bass? That's sacrilege. Gastronomic blasphemy. A barbaric act against the natural order of flavors. He starts pacing, agitated, like a lawyer delivering a fiery closing argument. Fagioli building up. Lemon, Mr. Ravioli. Lemon is harmony. Its purity balance it is. It is the very essence of maritime civilization. And what does that reckless excuse of a chef use? Onions, pestilence, invasion, the collapse of culinary dignity. He stops, panting, a hand clutching his chest. Fagioli, tragically gazing at the ceiling. What will become of us, Mr. Ravioli, if we can no longer trust a simple baked sea bass? Dramatic pause. Ravioli stares, unsure whether to answer or flee. Ravioli, carefully. I hit it anyway. Igor. Fagioli lost his mind over onions on a sea bass instead of lemon. If they'd served him canned fish, he probably would have fainted. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Geological fingerprint. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue their discussion about a book Banani found in his garage. It belonged to his grandfather and talks about the geological evidence for Noah's flood. Ravioli. We were talking about the sandstone near Zion National Park. Papaia. Inside the sandstone, there are grains of the mineral zircon, which are relatively easy to trace back to their origin. Ravioli. You said easy? How? Papaia. Because zircon usually contains radioactive uranium. Dating these zircon grains using the uranium-lead UPB radiometric method led to the hypothesis that the sand grains in the Navajo sandstone originated from the Appalachians of Pennsylvania and New York, and from even older mountains farther north in Canada. Ravioli. If that's true, the sand grains must have been transported at least 1,800 miles, 3,000 kilometers, across all of North America. Igor. The flood? A recent tale, so to speak. Just a few thousand years, all packed into a single grain of sand. Poetic, really. Papaya's story at Naysal? A little less epic, it starts with a reasonable idea that the Bible might be right.